Hello everyone and welcome to the International Business and Law Academy. My name is John and today I would like to introduce my presentation on the topic of international contracts, the performance of the contract. So first we should to discuss one case study to understand about the rights and obligations of the contracted parties and why they have the differences in the contract disputes. That is the case of Crusoe Lower International versus Copus Engineering Corporations. So let's hop into the facts. Crusoe Lower, a French company, was the project engineering for the construction of the ammonia plants in Yugoslavia and Syria. Crusoe Lower contracted with Copus Engineering for the purchase of burners that were capable of continuous operations using heavy fuel oils with combustion air preheated to 260 degrees Celsius. Copus warranted the burner for 1 year from the start of the plant, but not exceeding 3 years from the date of shipment. The burners for the Yugoslavia plants were shipped in November 1979, but the plants was not to become operational until the end of 1983 because of the construction delay. In 1981, Crusoe Lower discovered that similar burners in Syria plants and also plants in Sri Lanka were experiencing serious operational difficulties. Crusoe Lower wrote to Copus asking for proof that the burners for the Yugoslavia plants would meet contract specifications. Specifically, Crusoe Lower insists that Copus extend its contractual warranty to cover the delay in the startup of the Yugoslavia plants and post an irrevocable letter of credits for the purchase price of the burners. So now we should discuss more details of the case. So the issue here is Crusoe Lower request for assurance reasonable? Please, what you guys think, Ruby?
I think that Crusoe Lower's request for reassurances is reasonable because the contract plainly states that Copus was obligated to provide burners that would operate under certain conditions, and in this case, extreme conditions. But because the burners delivered to Syria and Sri Lanka did not conform to those specifications, Crusoe Lower had reasonable grounds for insecurity and accordingly was justified in seeking assurances from Copus.
Okay, that's a solid argument. Okay, Anne, would like you to add anything?
I agree with Ruby. Given the circumstance that Crusoe Lower was in, the request for assurances was not unreasonable. On top of that, the proportion of letter of credit conforms with the accepted international business practices.
Okay, Torrin.
The record demonstrates that Copus did not respond to Crusoe Lower complaints for over 6 months. This stalling the forced Crusoe Lower to request security in the form of a letter of credit and an extension of warranties.
And I also think that Copus's failure to provide any assurances constituted a repudiation of the contract or the unwillingness to perform it, which entitled Crusoe Lower to return its purchase price.
Ms. Mann, would you like to add to the case?
In this case, it is non-conforming rules and a contracting party has to clear and convincing in that should break view occur. She should give the other party notice that she consider the contract to be breached.
Ms. Chi would like to say.
In this case, forbid the seller to repair any non-conformities or defect in the goods. When the seller makes an early delivery that contains non-conforming goods, she has an absolute right to kill until the actual time of performance is due.
Yes, I agree with Ms. Chi. In my opinion, Crusoe Lower has the right to request for assurance is reasonable.
All right. Thank you all for your arguments. So to understand our arguments, I suggest that all of us should review about the theories and performance of the contracts, such as non-conforming goods, the notice of lack of conformity, the rights to cure, the excuses for non-performance, and the remedies for breach of contracts. So let's start off with non-conforming goods. Ruby?
Under non-conforming goods, I would like to talk about the notice of lack of conformity. Most domestic legal systems require that the buyer give timely notice of any nonconformity so that the seller can attempt to make repairs. And under the CISG, it expands on this notice requirement by insisting that such notice will be given no later than 2 years after the goods actually were handed over to the buyer.
Given the notice of lack conformity, the other party has the right to cure. The topic of this consists of where it permits the seller to repair any conformities or defects in the goods. The CISG and the UCC states that when the seller makes an early delivery that contains non-conforming goods, she or he has an absolute right to cure until the actual time of performance is due. Second point, a seller may have a right to cure even after the time of performance if the repair can be made without any unreasonable delay and without causing the buyer any unreasonable inconvenience.
Non-conforming goods, satisfactory reputation, and contracting party had claimed in confide evidence that should be will occur. She should give the other party notice that she consider the contract to be breached. Under CISC and UCC, the contract will be cancelled.
Alright, let's move on to excuses for non-performance.
Under excuses for non-performance, there are prevention, in which all legal systems generally excuse the duty to perform on the contract if the failure to act was substantially caused by the other party. And under the CSG, it also recognizes this doctrine of prevention. For impossibility, an event is unforeseeable if neither parties would have considered it to be a real possibility at the time of contracting. Most legal systems narrowly construe the circumstances under which a party is excused from performance.
The excuses for non-performance purchases are proposed. These differences arises when events that occur after formations of the contract make the promised return performance worthless to the promissory. Most courts in the United States do not recognize the fluctuations defenses. Commercial impracticability. The UCC has formally adopted this commercial impracticability standards when unforeseeable events make performance highly impracticable or unreasonable expenses.
Alright, let's move on to the final topic, which is the remedies for breach of contracts.
Remedies for the breach of contract. Avoidance. The CISG permit a non-breaching party to walk away from a contract by declaring an avoidance. This remedy is allowed only when there have been a fundamental breach. Monetary damage. Generally, the non-breaching party will receive a compensatory damage. Both the CSG and the UCC share the common law standard for determining a compensatory damage.
On top of that, there is specific performance. Sometimes, monetary damages do not adequately compensate the non-breaching party because the goods called for in the contract cannot be purchased elsewhere. The CISG allows specific performance in cases only where there is a fundamental breach.
Reduction in price. The common law countries favor the monetary damages remedy. However, civil law systems have traditionally denied such awards unless the breaching party was guilty of fault. The CSG has adopted the reduction in price remedy. However, it is not available to a buyer if a seller can cure the nonconformity without causing the buyer unreasonable delay or inconveniences.
Alright, thank you all for reviewing the theories regarding to contracts performance, and I hope that it clears up any questions or concerns about the case study and our arguments. Alright, thank you all for reviewing the theories regarding to the contracted performance, and I hope that cleared up any questions or concerns about the case study and our arguments. So the decision of the case, Cruciate Law International versus Copus Engineering Corporations. So I say yes, I agree with all of your arguments. The contract plainly states that Copus was obligated to provide burners that would operate under certain conditions. Because those burners delivered to Syria and Sri Lanka did not conform to those specifications, Cruciate Law has a reasonable grounds for insecurity. The assurance requested by Cruciate Law were not unreasonable in light of the circumstances. The demand for a letter of credits comported with acceptance international business practices. Accordingly, Copus failures to provide any assurance, save its statement that the burner would work if installed, continue a repudiation of the contract, which entitled Crusade Lore to a return of its purchase price. Alright, that would be the end of the presentation, and thank you all. And I would like to thank the International Business and Law Academy for this program.
Thank you very much for your presentation. The case study for expressing about the performance of the contract always make the learner headache. But your stream make the presentation is very good. Thank you.
Thank you.